seek you out, flay you alive.
Hey guys, Pogo here, and welcome to the next episode of the BungeeCord miniseries. In episode 77 of the bucket coding series, I believe, I showed you guys how to make this plugin, Server Info Getter, which can get information about a remote server. So what we're going to do today is we're going to adapt this code to make a plugin that will have signs that will automatically refresh themselves with all of this information that we're getting, and then it will also work with Bungee. So if you right-click on the sign, then it'll teleport you to that particular server. So if you did not watch this video on making the server info getter, I would definitely recommend that you watch it before you watch this video, because we're going to be copying and pasting this code as part of the plugin, but there are also a lot of other parts. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a class that represents, not a project, we're going to create a class that represents a sign. I'm going to call it status sign, even though that looks like status signs. You might want to rename status signs to be main, but this status sign singular represents one sign, and it's going to contain all of the information, and then it's going to have a method in here that will update all of its information, and that's what we're going to take the server info getter and get the code from there. Alright, so in this class we need to define a couple of instance variables. First thing is a private location, which I'll just call location. So that's where is this sign, because remember this represents a sign, so it has a location. Next is private sign, which I'll call sign. And I believe that we want to use the block version of the sign. And that's the actual sign itself. Now, sign, let me just check one thing. Sign itself might actually have get location. I guess it does. So we might not actually need to store the location, but I'll just leave it there anyways. Next is we need the name, and then also the IP. So the name is going to be like the name of the server, whatever name you want to show up on the sign, sorry, and then the IP is the actual IP of the server, and that's what will be used to pull all of the information. And then we also need the private int port. Okay, so now that's what we need there. So now we're going to go ahead and actually write the constructor. Public status sign, and this one needs the location, not localhost, location. So we're taking in a location. We actually don't need this sign. We're going to do a string name, string IP, and int port. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and say this dot location is equal to location. This dot sign is equal to, and then we're going to say sign location dot get block state. So is it get block? It's not that. Okay, hang on one second. It's get, oh, I'm sorry, it's just get state, but it returns a block state. Okay. So we're setting the sign equal to, we're casting the block state of that location's block, and when we actually go ahead and instantiate this, I believe it's going to be in like a sign change event when you create a sign, so that we can guarantee that it will be okay. Then of course this dot name is equal to name. This dot this dot IP is equal to IP. This dot port is equal to port. So we just need to initialize everything. Then you can go ahead and write the getters for everything. I'm not going to do that right now. I'll only do it if we actually need to do it. And then we of course want the public void update. Now this update method is going to be called, and we're going to go ahead and copy all of this code from the server info getter. We're going to paste it in here, and then we're just going to modify it a little bit. So we're going to replace localhost with IP and 255.65 with port. And then we're going to go ahead and say down here, I think that the way that the sign will work is it will say, so on the first line it'll be name, then it'll be the IP, and then it will be max divide, or it'll be current divided by max, and I guess that's it. We could do, I guess, the MOTD at the bottom. It'll have to be a shortened version, but we could do the MOTD at the bottom. Okay, so now what we'll go ahead and do is, instead of actually printing this out, which we obviously don't want to do, we're going to go ahead and call all the methods sign.setLine, because remember we have this sign object, and we're going to go ahead and change it. So we're going to go ahead and say sign.setLine. So we're first going to set the 0 line, or the first line, which is index 0, to be the name, which is going to be that name that we defined up here. Then we're going to set line 1, or this would be the second line, to be the IP, which again we already have up at the top. Then we're going to go ahead and set the third line to be online players, and then a divided symbol, not actual division, and then max players. Finally, we're going to set the fourth line, which is index 3, to be the MOTD. And that might be a problem. We might have to use a substring, but we'll see. And then one important thing that we need to do at the bottom is say sign.update. And that's just updating the sign. It's saying we changed something on the sign, now refresh the sign pretty much. So we want to do that at the bottom because we're going to set the lines here. But then also right here, if we get some kind of an exception and it didn't work, then we want to set the third line to be, we'll set it in red, and then we'll say error. So if it can't connect, then it'll say error. And I think that's all we need for the status sign class. We might come back here if we need to write any getters later, but let's go to this main class right here, and we're going to have to do quite a bit of work in order to get this working. It's obviously going to save and load all of the different signs, and it needs to have a bunch of different, listeners and things. So this also needs to implement listener, implements listener. Okay, and then we need to define, we're going to make an array list of status sign, which we'll call signs, because we want to store all of the different signs, because we're going to actually go ahead and write a repeating task to update them. So first we'll just go ahead and do our onEnable, public void onEnable. So we'll say, first of all, this dot signs is equal to new array list of status signs, so just initializing it right there. Then we want to go ahead and say save default config, so just saving the configuration file. And then we're going to say, let's move that down. We'll say for string str in getConfig.getKeys false. So we're getting all the different keys, but we're not doing a deep search. The false means that it only gets the top level. Then we're going to say, okay, so then it looks like this will have the name, and then it will, that str will be the name, and then maybe not. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and say configuration section s is equal to getConfig.get configuration section str. So we're getting this configuration section right there. Then we're going to go ahead and say that's just section. So then we're going to say configuration section L is equal to I guess s dot get configuration section. And then that will be lock for location, because that's where we're going to store all of the location. Then we're going to go ahead and say, I'll move that down, world w is equal to bucket.getServer.getWorld for l.getString world. So it will store, of course, the world, not word, world. And then we also have double x, y, and z. Oops. Okay, so we also have double x is equal to l.get double x, y is equal to l.get double y, z is equal to l.get double z. So now we're pulling in the world. That's actually the wrong world. So we're pulling in the world, and then we're also getting the x, y, and z locations. And each of these, each time this runs, it represents a different sign. And then the sign has the information. It has the location that goes with it, and then it also has the name. And it also has the IP address and the port. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and actually instantiate a location. So we're going to say location lock is equal to new location world x, y, and z. So now we're going to go ahead and say if lock.getBlock is equal to null. So if there's no block there, then we're going to say get config dot set str to be null. So if there's no block there, then we want to remove it, because if someone removed that sign, then it doesn't exist anymore, and it would obviously not work. So that's fine. And then we'll say else. So if it is actually there and we're good, then we're going to go ahead and instantiate a new sign. So we're going to say signs.add new status. Is it going to freeze? New status sign. And then it'll first take in lock. Then it'll take in, I think everything else comes from the config. So s.getString name, s.getString IP, and then s.getInt port. So the way that the configuration will work, or the way that it'll look, is like this. So for each one, so it'll be like, I think A, and then it'll have location, which will have world, X, Y, Z, and then it will also have name, and then what do we call them? IP and port. And then there will have B and C and D for however many there are. So that's how the configuration file will actually look. So the next thing we have to do is, after we load in all of the signs that already exist, we need to go ahead and get the scheduler and schedule a repeating task to update all of the signs. And this will be, we'll schedule a sync repeating task. Plugin is this, new runnable public void run, and then the delay can be 0, and then the repeat time can be 20, which is 1 second. You could make that longer if you wanted to. So then we're going to say for, not server, for status sign s in signs s.update. So every time this runs, it's going to go through all the different signs, and then it's going to call the update method on all of them. Two more things. We first, of course, need to register the listener. So bucket.getServer.getPluginManager.register events this, this. And then finally, since we are going to be using BungeeCord, we're only going to be sending out. We're not going to be receiving any information. So we need to do that register outgoing plugin channel. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch the video before this, because you'll need to know that in order to watch this video. So we're going to say get messenger dot register outgoing plugin channel, and it's going to be this, and then the channel is going to be BungeeCord stylized as such with the capital B and the capital C. That's very important. Okay, so we're done with the setting up. Now we're going to go ahead and write the player interact event, and this is going to be for checking if the player interacts with a sign, and then if they do, actually sending them to the server that has the sign, or the server that corresponds to the sign. So on player interact, this is a player interact event E. So I guess first we just have to do a bunch of checks. So first we're going to say if e.getAction is not equal to action.right-click block, then return, because we only care if they are clicking on a block. So now we can safely say block B is equal to e.getClickedBlock, because now we know that there has to be a block there since they obviously right-clicked on a block. So the next thing we can say, so if if b.getType, well, if b.getType is not equal to material.sign, or we also need to check for wall sign and signpost. So we're going to say and it's not equal to material.signpost, and b.getType is not equal to material.wallSign. So if it's none of these things, then we want to return as well, because we only care if it's some type of sign. Then we're going to go ahead and say for status sign s in signs, if s.getLocation equals b.getLocation, then we're going to go ahead and actually write out the information, which we will do in a second. But also, we need to just quickly add in public location, get location, return location. So just a getter for that location. So if it is equal, then now we're going to actually take the BungeeCord part, and I'm going to be lazy and open up Bungee count from, I guess, the last episode of the BungeeCord miniseries, and I'm going to copy this part right here. Now I'm not going to open up the part, let me just rename this to block. I'm not going to rename, I'm not going to open up that page, that wiki page that gives you the information about what every command is, but for this one we want to use the connect command. So we're going to write out connect, not connection, we're going to write out connect, and then we're going to write out s.getName, which we also need to write. So let's go ahead and make server signs, public string get name, return name, and I'm just going to put that below the location. Okay. So then we're going to write out connect and then the name. So like whatever the name of the server is, that's what you would put in there. Now the important thing is we can't have bucket send this message because in this case it matters who is sending it, because we're connecting whoever sends it to the server. So we're going to say e.getPlayer.send plugin message, and then it will work. And then in here we have this exception, and nothing's going to go wrong, so we don't really have to worry there, but it will print out a stack trace if anything happens. Okay, so the next part, the last part, or the second to last part actually, is that we're going to write a command so that if you look at a sign and then you type in the command, then it will go ahead and set up the sign. And the reason why I want to do this is because it's so much easier to type out a command while looking at a sign than to actually edit the lines of a sign. Because if you make a mistake, you can just get back what you just wrote and change it a little bit. And then also sometimes the IP address and port won't completely fit on the sign, but with the command it can be as long as it wants, and as long as the correct IP and port are saved, even if it doesn't write correctly to the sign, it'll still know to connect to the right server. So we're going to go ahead and write the command. We're going to write this as a command. So this is on command sender, command cmd, string command label, string array args. Okay, so now we need to, well, we first need to check if it's a player because you're creating a sign. You have to be looking at the sign, so it obviously needs to be a player. So if not, sender instance of player, sender.send message, check color.red, and then we'll just say only players can create status signs. Turn true. Player P is equal to player sender. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and actually check for the command. So if cmd.getName.equals ignore case, and we'll call this status signs. Then we're going to say if args.length is less than 2, I believe, because we need to get in. Okay, so yeah, we're going to go ahead and say actually 3, because we need the server IP address, the port, and then the name. So we're going to say p.sendMessage. In red, we're going to say slash status signs, IP, port, and name. So it requires those 3 arguments. Okay. So the next thing that we need to do, and this is going to take a little bit. We of course want to return true. So now there's just a couple of checks that we need to do. So let's first say that we want to make sure that the port is a number. So we're going to say string IP is equal to args0, string name is equal to args2. And then we're going to say, we also want to define int port. We're going to say try port is equal to integer.value of args1. So we're trying to get an integer out of what they type in, but if there's some kind of an exception, then we're just going to say return true, but we of course want to write them a message and say port is not a number. Okay, so now we have that little information found. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to get the block at which the player is looking, and we need to make sure it's a sign and then actually get with it. So block B is equal to p.getTargetBlock null, and let's say I believe we want to go with 10. So then we're going to say, so if B is null, so if they're not looking at a block, then we obviously want to tell them that they're not looking at a block, because you need to look at, you are not looking at a sign. Okay, so now we know with absolute certainty that they are looking at some sort of a block. So now we need to copy this part, because I don't feel like writing it out. And we're just gonna, let's just go ahead and rename this to be block. And then we're gonna go ahead and say, if it's none of these, if it's not a sign, and it's not a signpost, and it's not a wall sign, then we also want to tell them that they're not looking at a sign. So after this, we now know that they are certainly looking at a sign. So now we can go ahead and do a safe cast. So sign s is equal to sign block.getState. So we can now cast a sign, and we want to do the block version if I'm not mistaken. Okay, we're almost done. Now we're going to go ahead and instantiate a sign. We're going to say status sign s is equal to new status sign, and then that's going to take in IP, port, and name. We'll just call this status sign, I guess. Status sign, like that. And then, what did I do wrong? Oh, it needs the location. So it's going to be, I guess, just block.getLocation. Or it will be block.getLocation. So I think that we want to do the location of the block. And then, okay, yeah, I'm sorry. That's what we want to do. And then we also need to do string name. Okay, so it goes name, then IP, then port. So name, IP, port. So now we instantiate that. We want to say signs.add status sign. And then we finally want to call save status sign. And that's the last thing that we need to do, is write a private void save. Actually, let's just write it in here. And this is going to take in a status sign, which we'll call sign. So now this is just basically serialization. Now you could have status sign implement configuration serializable, as I did, and I think the first episode of the Teams miniseries. But I'm just going to go ahead and make it easier. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to say int size is equal to getConfig.getKeys false.size. The reason why we're doing this is actually, instead of ABC, it's going to be 1, 2, 3. So what's going to happen is it'll start with the number 1, and the size is always greater than the last index. So if there's one, so like if the index is 0, then the size is going to be 1. So what we can do is we can say that this is equal to, we can get the size, and then this will always give us the next number up, and that, I believe that should be fine. If not, you might want to do size plus 1, which I guess I'll do. I don't really see a problem with doing that. Then we'll go ahead and we just need to set everything. So getConfig.set size.lock.world to be sign.getLocation.getWorld.getName. And then we need to do site, or that key.lock.x to be getX. And then we of course need for the y and the z to be y and z. Okay, so we save all of the location information that we need. Then we need the name, the IP, and the port. So we'll go ahead and say size.name to be sign.getName. So we'll have to actually end up writing getters for everything. And then IP to be getIP, and then port to be getPort. And then we of course want to say save config at the end. So after we set everything, we want to save the configuration file. So let's just go ahead and quickly write public string get IP, return IP, public int get port, return port. Let me just quickly see. Okay, wow, this is a long episode. I'm sorry guys if you're getting bored, but it's just, you just have to, this one particular thing takes a lot of code to write. Actually, I guess we don't even need that. Okay. So I think we should be good. I mean, maybe we'll find a problem when we go to run it, but let's see. Okay, so one thing that it's saying is it wants the socket to be closed, which is a good idea, because if we leave it open, then it'll just have a ton of sockets open, which is not good, so we'll close it. Now I'm going to go ahead and export status signs to the server A in plugins, and I'm going to call it status signs. And I think that we should be good there. So now let me go over to documents, and YouTube, and the BungeeCord Miniseries. Server A, and let's go ahead and start up server A. Might as well also get server B up so I can have two different signs to show you. So let's just give this a second to load everything. Just a second. I hope. Okay. Oh, that's right. Okay, we just need to make an empty config.yml, because we don't want anything to be in it by default, but we just have to have it in there. So now if we reload, should work. Okay, and now let's also go over to server A. Might as well grab status signs here, and then we'll put it into server B, even though we might not use it on server B, and then we will start server B. In the meantime, we'll head over to BungeeCord, and we will start that up in just a second. Okay, so that seems to be doing fine. All the servers are started. So now let me go ahead and open up Minecraft so that we can test this. Okay. And let they updated. Alright, so actually, okay, looks like Minecraft is frozen. Let me just pause the video. No sense in you guys watching this. Okay, so fun fact, the version of BungeeCord and Bucket that I have support 1.7.10, which I guess just came out. But anyways, I have now joined. This is obviously server A, which is the lobby server, and it does have server signs installed, but of course I forgot to register the command, so give me 1 second. I went ahead and updated it. I think it's only updated on server A right now, but that's fine. So now I registered, and you can see it says status signs, IP, port, and name. So let me just grab give stick 29 sign 1. I'm not okay. Now give me a sign. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make an empty sign, and now let's go ahead and actually try this out. So status signs takes first the IP, the port, and then the name. So the IP in this case can be localhost, the port can be 25565, and then the name will be A, since this is server A. Now, as you can see, I've gone ahead and done that, and it says first A at the top, then localhost, which is the IP. It doesn't actually put out the port, but you could just change the text. How do you get rid of this? Oh no, toggle down full. Okay. And then it has obviously 1 out of 20, which is the correct player count, and it does say a Minecraft server, but it's cut off. Let's go ahead and grab one more sign so that I can show you that it works with B. And actually, we don't want anything on there. So now we're going to say, I believe server B is running on 25565, and I'll call that B. Let's do it while I'm looking at a sign. And as you can see, it now says B localhost, but that says 0 out of 20 because obviously server B doesn't actually have any players on it. Let's actually try the last part. Obviously, everything else works. But if I right-click on that, as you can see, I was just connected to server B. Now on here, it has like an older version of the status signs plugin, so I'm not going to make another sign to take me back. But if I do leave and then I go back over to Bungie, oh, I see it put me back here. So let's just go back to server A. And then, as you can see, everything works. So A says I'm already connected, but B will actually connect me to server B, which is pretty awesome. That's exactly what we want. Alright, so that's all for this video. I know that this was too long. I didn't really realize it was going to be so long when I was, planning to make it. For those of you who stuck with me until the end, thank you, and I hope that you find this plugin to be interesting. It's a pretty cool plugin. It not only pulls remote information about a server, but it also updates it frequently. It has support, it's persistent through reloads, and it can also work with BungeeCord to send you to another server. So this would be cool for, a lobby server. You can get live statistics about other servers, like whether they're open or closed, and then just right-clicking on the sign will allow you to join the server. As always, subscribe if you want to see more, comment with what you want to learn. If you like this video, click the like button. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to make a BungeeCord plugin that does not use Bucket, and then we're probably going to be done for this series. See you guys soon with some more videos, as always, and bye for now.